Okay.
Alert. Okay. So just in your own mind, we'll just do this, just as a practice run. So if you just close your eyes, say to yourself, I feel alert. Yes, it's true. I feel alert. Just in your own space. Then when you're ready, open your eyes.
Yeah. I lay on the scare, you gotta glow, you gotta glow. She had my attention, she gotta know. I want to welcome everyone to another episode of the Let's Gather podcast. I'm your host Zeke, and in this episode, I have Wendy Nash to speak about the art introspection. I'd like to give a content warning for Sean. Let me choose this episode and hope you have a nice day and enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ezekiel. It's very lovely to be here. Before I start, I just want to say thank you for the warm welcome. It's really appreciated. One of the things that is traditional in Australia, particularly for the Aboriginal communities, but it's become more common in the broader community, is to recognise the land that we're calling from, because this is Aboriginal land. And the people here have been caring for that land for 70,000 years, making sure it's functioning and well and connected and respectful and good stewardship. And it's not until we know where we've come from that we can sort of feel present where we are and know where we're going to. And I just think it's really important to respect the people who have been caring for the place where it's come from, where we are now, which is pretty trashed, and where we're going to. Oh dear, it's a crash and burn. But that's what I like to do. So, yeah, thank you. I'm calling from Gabby Gabby country. That's the other thing.
Nice. Take that moment and cool. So now we get started. So before we ask the questions, I'd like to introduce yourself to the audience real quick, and then we get started.
Okay.
So yes. Uh,
Did you want to ask me a question or?
I'm not saying I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience real quick.
Okay, as you just
Yeah.
introduce myself. Okay,
Yeah.
well, so my name's Wendy Nash. I'm in Australia on the East Coast. So we're East Coast to East Coast. And it's winter here. So it's July and it's winter and it's absolutely raining. I'm sure you heard about the bushfires and now we've got floods. So it's pretty full on. Um, I dropped out of school. I had a very chaotic school life. I failed miserably. I had very difficult family circumstances. A couple of my family members died. Um, yeah, it wasn't a supportive, warm environment. It wasn't like brutally violent or anything like that, but it was certainly, I didn't feel secure and warm in that place. And I think there were a few things that were really important to me that I saw. One is I was walking along as a kid and I saw the church on the side and it said, Jesus loves everyone. And I thought, I feel deeply unloved. Jesus is one person. I'm one person. I'm going to find a way to love everybody. So I didn't have very good emotional skills and resources and things. So I had quite a bit of a temper, quite a lot of anger. I had quite a lot of PTSD, basically, complex PTSD. And so I had to work through all that over time. And it was not straightforward. But I kept going. And I wasn't really that interested in a career, but I just got work in order to keep the rest of my life going. And I ended up living in Sweden and France and England. And I just tried to figure out who I was by going to lots of different places to see how I was when I wasn't with people who were expecting me to be in a particular way. They weren't interacting with me in a particular way. So I really wanted to figure out who I was. Was I what all these people were saying? Was I coming up against the same problems? And I wanted to kind of find a way to love everybody. So I did lots of, I was a secretary for 30 years, and anybody who is a secretary is not doing that job because it's a fun job to do. They're doing it because there's kind of no alternative. And that applies anything in a support role or the service industry. Like if people had a choice, that's not what they would be doing. Always be really kind to people in the service industries and support services. But like lots of people, I thought I had it together. I got married. I did what I thought everyone said was going to make me happy, and it didn't make me happy. I didn't feel settled. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't figure out my path. I didn't want a career. I didn't want to, I just felt very disorientated by what I thought everybody was telling me I should do, and I just didn't know. And in the end, of course, I saw a counselor, and basically I just thought, I don't know who I am. I need to explore this. And I did a big personal development journey. And I just thought, well, what can I do that's different? And the one thing that was really, I heard that made a lot of really good sense was the one common denominator in all my relationships is me. So if I'm having a repeated experience which is crappy, that's because I'm doing something which is not working. So then I would really I asked my therapist, what am I doing that's not right? And she was very skillful. Very gently, she kind of helped me learn a different way to be. So through that, I learned meditation, and I learned some really good questions about really good ways of exploring internally how to find my own voice. So I'm happy to run through that, and how to build rapport, because that's what I really needed to do. So I'm happy to share that with you now, if that works, or if you wanted to go on, or if you had questions about what I've just said.
We can definitely talk on that. So with like all those feelings and like not knowing what's next and just feeling lost, what's kind of like that motivator? Because a lot of times we all feel like that. We're all trying to work our way through, but like a lot of times in those emotions, there doesn't seem like a way out.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a way out, but there is a way out, because it's not always the same. Like if you think about it, your day from the time you get up, you wake up to the time you go to bed, you go through all these different moods, and some people seem to bring out the magic in you, and then some people bring out the poo in you. So, and it's really like, well, it's not about the other person. It's sort of what you've got inside of you that is being triggered by the events of the people around you. So starting to notice when it arises, what's the context, and when it's not. So, and the truth is, like you change as a person. Like what I really came to is you do change if you apply yourself. It's not going to change on your own. It's like if you go to the gym, or you take up, I don't know, a sport or singing or writing or reading, anything, this radio podcast, you kind of get better at it as you go, because you learn different things. So you're always in a state of change, and you can either make that a really conscious decision, or you can just let yourself be a passive rider in that. But whatever you do forms a neural pathway, for lack of a better word, for what happens next. So the more you get angry, the more you're going to get angry, because those neural pathways are going to be more sort of embedded. The more you kind of own your own feelings, the more integrated you feel in that, the more integrated and connected you feel to others. So it's not about, just be happy or change your approach. You've really got to own the feelings. That is that. But it can change. It does change. I used to have a foul temper, and I just don't. I got a bit cranky yesterday, and then when I sat down with it, I just thought, actually, that person was talking to me as if I was like a painting on the wall, and she was telling me about her glorious life. And of course, what would I want to do? I'd want to thump someone like that, like who wouldn't? So it's not like I'm going to, but I just got really irritated by her because I felt kind of used as an object in her world. And I didn't like that feeling. So I don't know if I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but what do you think?
I get it. It's like that thing where it's like, did you have a bad day or did you just have a bad morning? Of like, are you letting your happy morning dictate your whole day now that you are mad from there? Then you're having a bad mood. So anything else is just adding towards it.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got to own it. So with that woman yesterday, she wanted to build a friendship with me actually, and I'm obviously not going to do that. But what I did afterwards is like, wow, I'm kind of riled up here. And so I've got this technique with any problem I've got where I feel a bit confused or out of sorts. And this is one of the things that I learned that I was thinking maybe this would be useful, is as I kind of bring to mind the problem and I go, what am I not seeing about this? And then I just get on with my day, go, I don't need to foster and, fester on it. I just sit there and I get really engaged with it, get engaged with life. And then a couple of hours later, I felt really used. I felt like an object in her world that she was kind of gloating, So that's what came of it. So that question, what am I not seeing about this, is really good because that kind of gets behind the habitual thinking and gives you an opportunity to see something fresh. I'm sure you've had that thing where you're like working really hard, you're trying to figure it out, and then you go away and you do something and then the idea just clicks. You go, that's what I need to do. That's what it's doing, but it's really setting up that space to do that. So it's being really conscious about it rather than waiting for it to happen.
Got it. Definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
And now we can move on to building rapport with people.
Yeah. So I was really terrible at getting on with people. And it was really interesting with that woman yesterday because she actually does a lot of healing work. So she works with people to transform their world. And it was really like, it just goes to show it's not about the job, And what I didn't realize for a long time is that you have to, there's a couple of things. So say someone comes to you and they go, hi, how you going? Or you've got a podcast or something like that. You have a podcast. And here's the problem or something, and you go, tell me more about that. So if you just start with tell me more about whatever it is, it gives the other person the opportunity. It says, this person's interested in what I've got to say. They're actually interested in me. And the other thing is it gives the speaker, an opportunity to just take a breather. So this is really good if somebody comes to you and they're a bit upset and they might go, I had this really bad interaction with so-and-so. And then you can go, tell me more about that. And it just gives you a moment to pause and to just slow down instead of getting caught up with a reaction, which is kind of what we want to do. So tell me more about what's going on for you. Tell me more about what bothered you. Tell me more about the problem you've got. Tell me more about how life is going for you. So it's just a really good, nice opener. And then once they've talked about it, you go, what I hear you care about is. So with this person yesterday, I was telling my partner, and one thing he could have said was, what I hear you care about is yearning for connection, that she was interested in your world. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to get the feelings. I think sometimes when we're looking for feelings, it can be a bit intrusive, particularly in a workplace, but even with couples, and it's sort of not really the key thing. It's really about, what does this person actually care about? What's important to them here? And it's a way of saying, I'm getting what is important for you. You really care about. good communications, good friendships, quality connections, whatever it may be. So that's the second one. And as you wind up the conversation, the third one is, what's your sense of things? Or how do you feel about that? Or what are your thoughts about what's the next step forward? So you can choose any of those or all of them. Depends on how, like if you've got a partner and you've got a big problem, you can just always ask those questions about what's your sense of the next path? What's your sense of what the issue is here? And, how do you feel about our conversation so far? What are your thoughts about, how we're connecting? It's a nice, round, nice, open thing. And some questions that are really bad, it's actually always the first letter. So the first word, and that is, don't ask a question that starts with why. Why did you do that podcast? Why did you ask me that question? It has an accusatory tone to it. And it also I did it because, my star sign said it was, or, I was in a bad mood, or it's not really a helpful question syntax. Another one to not ask is, do you think, or would you say? Because that's really narrowing it down to what the asker is saying. Like that's actually shifting the conversation over to my side as the questioner. That's that. Another one to not ask is or are, if it starts with is or are, because they're closed questions. So if you just stick to what or how or where, they're great openers. And if you just ask those questions in a day, and hardly anybody asks a question, you try and track how many questions are in a day, and it's like you'll be lucky to get 3. It's very interesting. So if you want to kind of really build rapport with people and make them feel connected and supported, that's actually all you need to do. It's not more complicated than that. It's super easy. And I just wish I had known that when I was 20. I would have had so many fewer problems at work, in relationships, with friendships, with family. And it was my lack of capacity I just didn't know that it was as simple as that, basically.
I can definitely see that of asking questions that lets the person explain, but lets them freely explain, not tell them hey, what? Because why is always there's a reason, and you're a lot of times it can be you're the cause of the reason.
Right. Yeah. So you really get it. So
yeah.
I can really hear that you're trying to kind of synthesize what is the essence here. I can really hear that you're trying to really get to the nub of the matter. Yeah.
Because earlier I was watching somebody on TikTok saying they were having trouble speaking with people because when they got to questions how people would ask questions to figure each other out and start a conversation, they would just do a questionnaire here's the answer and that's it. The answer is just the end of the sentence, not okay, now what about you or what, anything like that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you do actually have to inquire about the other person. So that's what was so strange about the conversation yesterday that I had with this person. She wanted to become my friend, and she came to my house. I showed her around. She made no observation comment about, you've only moved here recently. Look how homely it is. Or that's an interesting painting or whatever. Oh, you've got lots of books. What books do you read? Nothing of that. We sat outside. It was really cold because it's winter here. And, cold for us, not by New York standards. And there was a garden. She just I have a business. She had made no inquiry into that. So you do actually have to make an effort. But my sense of those kinds of conversations, that like my normal conversation like that, is that people will generally reciprocate. But I'd have to say I couldn't get a word in edgeways because she was just talking about herself. So it was really difficult, hard work. I could have shifted gears, but after a while, I just thought, I don't even like you. So, yeah.
A lot of times it's better to save the energy and then just let things happen and then be like, okay, cool, never again.
Yeah. And, if she says, oh, look, I'd love to catch up again, it's like, oh, look, I've just got a few things on. I'm really sorry. I've got a few. And if she persists, I'll just go, look, I'm really sorry. But we sat for 2 hours and I didn't feel that you were really that interested in my life. And, I do think it's at some level, she might get all, grumpy and crappy with me, whatever. But at least she's got an answer. Then she can go, okay, well, maybe there's some truth to that. And she can inquire. If you don't say anything, you never know.
Yeah. And you said something else besides inquiring. I forgot earlier.
So what am I not seeing about that? That one? Or...
Oh, I can't remember. So yeah.
Okay.
I guess we can move on to why I'm not seeing about that. Because I think that's a lot of times with me. I'm always like, the solution's here, but I can't. To see, I'm too focused on the problem.
Right. So you're kind of like got this thing happening in your mind, and it's like the problem focus is taking up too much energy. And so you need to kind of sort of think more broadly, widely, or something like that.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
Also to be like more creative with the thought process of like not just following the standard.
Exactly. So I can go into a little bit about the mind, how the mind works, because I've been meditating for 20 years. And I'd have to say I focus on loving kindness meditation. I'm going to give a really good technique that I wish I'd known. I'd sort of had I was traumatized and I was depressed and I was sad and I felt really isolated and lonely because I had all these like emotional problems and interpersonal problems. And I just had lots of crap to deal with, And so there's a couple of things a couple of techniques which I think I wish I had known then, what I know now, kind of things. But basically, one is to spend like if you were to think about, this time yesterday, what were you doing?
This time yesterday?
Yeah.
What did I do? Yesterday I went outside, ran some errands, and
okay. So you went outside. It's New York. Is it quite warm? Is the sun nice or is it quite harsh?
It was cool yesterday. Very cool.
So is that good or bad?
It's good.
It's good. Okay. so with when you went outside, to just kind of notice, the sun feels nice today, actually. Feels really pleasant. It's not too hot. It's not too sticky. It doesn't feel like I'm enjoying this. And notice that you're enjoying it. And it's not a problem to enjoy. I think we can feel guilty for enjoying something, but actually it's really nice to enjoy. When you've met somebody and they're in a great spirit and they're full of life and how nice that is.
Yeah.
And so the more often you can think about what is pleasant, which is not to say you have to ignore the fact that things are crappy, like if it's boiling hot, like that's not very nice. So you go, yeah, well, this is a bit crap actually. So, but if it's pleasant, notice that it's pleasant. And with the errands that you ran, was that to help anybody in any way? Was it anybody asking for your help at all? Was it something to do with a relationship that maybe you wanted to feel like it was a good thing to do or something like that?
That's pretty much accompanying my mother, just running, helping her.
Right. Okay. So with your mum, she has spent a lot of time helping you in life. She's taken a lot of time, thoughtfulness, care about what you like to eat, what you like to wear, not so much now, but certainly as a little boy. Which sort of friends are good friends to have, who to steer clear of. I gather for Black people in the US, it's, be careful of the police. This is what you do. Is the talk, I think you call it. So there's all these like really important moments of care and thoughtfulness that other people make for you. So in this instance, it's your mum. And did she cook your dinner yesterday or lunch or anything?
No.
Okay. Did you make her lunch or dinner or anything like that?
No, we just bought lunch and we were
Uh,
just
right. But she went to a place and you went to a place which would be mutually enjoyable.
yeah,
Like you wouldn't have gone to a place and she wouldn't have chosen a place if it hadn't been something that you both went, actually, you know what? I think we'll both enjoy this place. So it's like you're both thinking about the other person's well-being in that moment.
yeah,
Yeah. And so you came back together, you enjoyed each other. And I'm sure if you passed by something, you either one would have gone, hey, look at that. Did you see that? That's really cool. Or wow, that's kind of a bit offbeat there. You're nonetheless thinking of the other person, engaging with their reality, and wanting the other person to be well and to kind of enjoy life more. Do you get where I'm going with
yeah.
this? And you can do that with anything. So it can be about uh, like some, even in the workplace, somebody says, oh, look, I saw this and I thought you would be the right person for this job. Now that means that they think they have you in high esteem, or in good esteem anyway. They think this person has something that I think has value. And it's not to say, whoa, like I'm really an amazing person because I've got this amazing thing happening. It's just going, wow, that person thought of me in a kind way. That's really a nice thing to do. If I had just thought more about the kind ways that people are, and less about how suspicious, what's their motivation, why are they doing that, they didn't do this, I wanted that. So that's how I was before. And if I had just focused on how much thoughtfulness other people were making about me, I would have had a much happier life. Bosses, colleagues, boyfriends, family, all that sort of stuff. And the other thing that I think is really important is when we have a really crappy day, and we're having a tough time, and like yesterday with this woman, I just use it as an example because I just think it's fresh, and that's that. And we all have, I generally get on well with people, but we all have our bad moments. Yeah. So the other thing is that when you're having a really crappy time of things, is just to really figure out what is the emotion. Like I couldn't figure out with this woman yesterday kind of how I felt, because it's sort of like she was a lovely person. She was kind. She was softly spoken. She had a lot of interesting things to say. She transformed a lot of her life around. So I couldn't figure out why I was so bothered. And so what I did, apart from, what am I not seeing about this, is to go, what's the emotion I'm feeling here? And I just went, I feel used. That was actually what came up. And then what I do in that moment is I just go, I feel used. Yes, it's true. I feel used. And by doing that, I find that the resistance to feel that just dissipates. My body can hold it. And I just feel like, okay, it's okay to feel that. My body has the capacity to manage that. So do you feel a bit nervous or what do you feel at the moment?
Me, I'm just keeping track of everything. Mostly like I'm not being like nervous, is more of being alert, I would say.
Alert. Okay. So just in your own mind, we'll just do this, just as a practice run. So if you just close your eyes, say to yourself, I feel alert. Yes, it's true. I feel alert. Just in your own space. Then when you're ready, open your eyes.
I feel alert. This is true. I feel alert.
You can just say that to yourself. It feels a little bit less weird. And how do you feel in your body now, in your mind?
A little calmer, like I took a pause.
Right. It's really, and look, that took all of about 4 seconds. I mean, a little bit extra because it was a bit of a teething issue. But if you're really pissed off with somebody or really hurt, whatever, or you're just feeling a bit jangled by something and you go, what is the emotion here? And then when the emotion arises, you just go, I feel sad. Yes, it's true. I feel sad. You can just do that to yourself on the bus, on the wherever. You can do that in a meeting. And then it just is like, okay, I don't have to be afraid of this feeling. It's okay. And your whole energy is more able to engage. So I wish I'd learned that one when I was 20. Like, yeah, lots of stuff like that. So I hope your people find that a useful one, because I just don't want anybody to kind of mess up their lives in the same way that I did. It's much more resourced now than it used to be. So yeah.
Definitely. And now I guess we can transition to what you're doing currently in terms of working career.
Yeah, so I hated being a secretary. I think I already mentioned that. And I got to my 50s, and like a lot of people in their 50s, I didn't know where to go. Like, I couldn't get a job. I was really sick of the job, and I couldn't get it. I wasn't motivated. I didn't feel engaged with it. And one of the things that I thought about actually in relation to being white and having the white privilege is that because everything is provided for us on a red carpet, like we just walk in and we get it, like I really know this. We're completely unable to find our feet if there's no red carpet. We don't have the skills. And it's the first time in our 50s we kind of have to figure it out on our own. So I got there, and I just thought, wow, this is actually what it's like for anybody who's not white. It's like, I don't have that privilege anymore. It was very instructive for me. And so a friend said he wanted help with work-life balance. Somebody else said they wanted help with learning to meditate. And they both happen to be people who are starting their businesses. So I just decided I would focus on people who start their businesses and teach them meditation and work-life balance. So that's what I do. And I just basically unpack a lot of their emotional stuff. So it's a bit like counseling. But I'm really interested in getting people resourced to meditate. Because if you meditate, it's free. You can do it anywhere, but it just takes a bit of time to get the routine in place, because people kind of sit down and they go, wow, the mind is crazy. And they've never heard that voice before. So they get really freaked out by it. I know the first time I was like, I could barely even contain myself. I had to leave the room, the meditation hall, all those years ago, because I was just so freaked out. I'll tell you a funny story about the first time I did meditation. It was loving kindness meditation. Got to the end of the thing, and the instructor said, so how did you go with that? And I said, wow, I didn't realize I hated everyone. It made me realize that the problem then wasn't other people. The problem was with me. So that was a really big thing which kind of stopped me in my tracks, actually. So I teach people to meditate so that they can feel so much resourced. They're calmer in their work. They're calmer in their relationships. They're nicer to themselves. They live more balanced lives. They feel more, I guess, for lack of a better word, inwardly generous, and therefore outwardly generous. The more you kind of own your own emotional landscape, you are more familiar with it, the more emotionally available you can be with another. And that's what it's about. So that's what stops the loneliness. It's actually how well are we connecting at the emotional level. But you can't do that until you know what your own emotions are. Yeah. So that's what I do. I work with entrepreneurs to help them set up a meditation practice. And by the way, a completely non-meditation practice, but the best, easiest way to make yourself more cheerful is to drink 2 liters of water a day. Now, my understanding is a liter is about a quart. So if you drink 2 quarts a day, 8 glasses, that, and you can drink hot water. So I've got some mugs here, and each one of them is 250 mils, 8 ounces. And if you just put 4 mugs in front of you in the morning, and you do that after lunch, that's 2 liters. And it means that every time you're a bit thirsty, you just have a gulp, and then that's that. So that's a simple way to just feel more upbeat and cheerful, happy. Yeah. So that's it. So that's what I do. And I found it, I've stopped hating people now.
Yeah, I can definitely see that again on TikTok. Somebody who's like a boss took him out. Their workers asked him when the next time they go golfing. He asked why, because like he's nicer after he goes golfing. So I made him sit down and realize that he needs time to separate from the business to not be as stressed, to then not accidentally relieve that stress onto his workers.
Right, right. That's it. Golfing is a bit of a privileged sport, I would have thought, but it was nice that he was actually curious about that.
Yeah.
And that's the key. There's no way a subordinate would have come up and said, you're just so much better after you've gone golfing because you're kind of horrible the rest of the time. He became curious about why he noticed there was some kind of encouragement. Well, what is that about, actually? Well, actually, I'm a bit of a pillock the rest of the time, So, but it's that curiosity to inquire. That's the meditation part.
Yeah.
It's about becoming aware of what we feel. It's not about suppressing a feeling or saying, I shouldn't be angry or anything. It's about owning the anger, seeing that we are angry, and then owning that. So then we don't scatter it around everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for me, when I get mad, I usually like to separate because I know that I'm going to react more in anger.
Yep.
Then I'm going to like generally react normally. So I just like give myself time to like calm down, just like, okay, here's my emotions, and then okay, now I understand what's going on. Now I gotta react to everybody else normally.
Yeah, right. And so so if you've got a bit of a temper like I used to, I can say it does change. Now I'm aware that in the US, as a Black person, I just hear this on the thing. So I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn or inappropriately or anything, but I hear it's pretty intense, the racism. And it's often very oblique, so you can't quite figure out if it's true or not. Sometimes it is, people are overtly. And in some ways, as horrible as that is, at least you know what you've got. But when people are a little bit weird, like I once was in a workplace and I just went, this is weird. And I went into the Buddhist center in the evening and I just went, this is so nice. And I felt accepted. And it made me think about, I know African-American communities are very Christian. The church is very, very important. And I thought, yeah, if basically you're being harassed and harangued the rest of your time, you go into a place where people are lovely and warm and happy to see you, and you can expend some of that energy singing and, why wouldn't you? And it made me really understand at an internal sense what racism could be like. I just felt like no one said anything, but I could feel it and I just knew it was there. So, it wasn't because of racism. It was just they were just weird people and they didn't like me. I'm totally adorable. But I felt very judged in that instance. So that's what I guess I'm saying.
It's like that tension in the air that you can't put your finger on, but you know that something's up.
Exactly. And there's some BS bitching behind there, whatever, and they're all kind of in some clique. Girls are pretty nasty like that. So yeah. Yeah. But exactly like that. Yeah.
And working with people, how's their reaction to like the first meditation to like this whole new way of thinking?
So in the beginning, people are just like, oh my God, my mind is crazy. Sorry, I blasphemed. My mind is crazy. So I get people to sit down in the evening and just before they go to bed, and on their phone, I get them to do 1 minute, put it on airplane mode. And then I set the time, get them to set the time up for 1 minute. And they're like, 1 minute? Really? Like, that's nothing. And I'm like, oh, you'd be surprised how long a minute is. And then I just get people to breathe, just to notice the sensations of the breath. And I get people to do 1 minute for a week. And the following week, it's 2 minutes. The following week, it's 3 minutes. Now, I've got some clients who've been at 5 minutes for about 3 months. It's kind of crazy. And once people get to 5 minutes, I get them to start thinking about what are the things that were pleasant. I'm a bit funny about the gratefulness movement because it's like, you should be grateful you're on the minimum wage. At least I've got a job. Like that's really terrible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm actually really weird about the gratefulness movement. But if you just look for the kindness that is there anyway, there's nothing to be grateful for. There's no compassion. There's no doing. All you're doing is noticing, changing the focus. So that's what works really well, I find. Yeah. And here's one, just because here's something else which I think is really helpful. It's not meditation, but I think it's a really good book. It's called Smart Work by Dermot Crowley. And that's all about managing your email account at work. So there's a lot of emails that people get in. You probably get a lot of emails for this podcast. And it tells you how to manage the email, the number of the volume, just the sheer volume of emails. It tells you how to navigate that, how to plan your week so you're really effective in using and how you use your time. So I think that's the best book on that. It's called Smart Work and it's by Dermot Crowley. He's an Irish guy, but he's from Sydney. So he's in Sydney, yeah. So that I think is really helpful to all those things. But yeah, look, if people want to get in touch, I'm at kindlycutthecrap.com. So kindlycutthecrap.com. And I'm happy to just, if people have an inquiry, they just want to find out just some simple strategies, doesn't have to get caught up in anything. I'm happy to just give them, an opportunity to learn. I just want everybody to feel loved and happy and well. So if that's what people would find helpful, just feel free to get in touch. I've got a contact box there. So yeah, it's the best way to do it.
Got it. But off topic. So it's winter for you guys right now.
Yeah.
And summer for us. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's July. So by the time this goes to air in October, it'll be spring for us.
And then winter, fall for us.
And it'll be autumn for you guys, yeah. So you'll be looking at everything and I'll be having a lovely summer ahead and you'll be going, oh, there's that snow again. So, yeah.
Got it. And before I forget, so I meant to ask earlier, but what would your origin story be and how would you like to represent it?
Origin story.
Yeah.
So I don't know that term actually. So if you can just explain for me what that term is, then I'll tell you what my origin story is.
So if you think so, for like superheroes, it's usually like their story of how they became like the hero that they are, the stuff they went to. So when I ask that of people, sometimes people give me like their background, like you did earlier, but like how they got to where they are, and then sometimes people make up a story, like a fun story, little story about. So.
I'm seriously someone who lacks imagination. I have this fantasy of being a really good narrator of wonderful stories and things like that. But I guess, I'm kind of a drama queen at the best of times. So I kind of love to live with flourish. I think what is my story, my origin story? I think I was wrong. Like I had this idea, no one loved me growing up and it was all hard up. And, there's certainly some truth to that it was there were some difficult, cold, heartless moments and people in my life. There's no two ways about that. But actually, I'm wrong more often than I'm right. And I would say my origin story is realizing, I guess, from a superhero perspective, I am Ms. What is it? You had Wonder Woman. I am wrong woman. I am always wrong. And so I just really enjoy kind of getting it wrong. And I really enjoy the fact that somebody asked me once, would you rather be right or be happy? And I was like, well, I'll be happy when I'm right. So, and then I started to really query that. And I realized it's actually so much better to just be wrong and to take it as an opportunity to learn. And, I had this thing where I was like really head up about being right about it. And then I thought, well, okay, so, and I'll do this with you if you're okay with it. Okay, take a topic that is your big favorite thing in the whole big wide world. So music, or some people type music or a software or whatever it is, your number one big favorite, most researched thing that is your bag. What is that?
Say anime.
Anime? Okay. If you think about anime all over the world, okay, and if someone were to ask you about this particular thing, about anime, as a percentage of all the anime in the world, what would you be unequivocally 100% sure that you would absolutely be right? It was non-negotiable that you would be right. As a percentage out of 100 of all anime in the world, how big would that percentage be?
Like 10%?
Yeah, that's right. And then you'd probably have a good hunch of about 30%. Chances are you'd be on the right track for that. Yeah. And so we're talking about 40% chance you're either right or probably right, which means that 60% of the time, there's a really good chance you're clueless, actually.
Yeah.
And you don't have all the bits and pieces in your knowledge and the context, and people are weird, like I don't even know myself, let alone anybody else. So there's like a really good chance that you're going to be wrong anyway. So why get so caught up about trying to prove I am right? I came from a very self-righteous, opinionated family. And so it was like, oh, I can just be wrong. And actually my life is a heap happier if I just go, oh yeah, I was wrong about that. Okay, well, who cares? Like the plumber was supposed to come this morning and I rang her up. I'm like, oh, they haven't turned up. Actually, your day is tomorrow. Oh, okay, right. Well, I'm wrong about that. There you go. And she had a laugh, oh, there you go. And it just makes life so much easier when we're willing to be wrong. And so I kind of am a superhero of wrong.
And how would you like to represent that? Would you make a book about that, a TV show, movie?
I love the idea of doing a superhero, having like all these people go around like a sort of a superhero and a wrong, you'd have to have something kind of ill-fitting or kind of goofy, and then just have them just go around and going, wow, I was wrong about that. How good's that? I'm going to learn something, So I think some kind of goofy superhero who was just always wrong, badly dressed, something like that. I think that would be what I would like. They've got like a Mr. Gadget. Did you have Mr. Gadget? Inspector Gadget? You have that? So you can have Inspector Gadget, but everything malfunctions. That's what I think would be my superhero. I love that. That's a great question.
Thanks. Cool. Running close on time. So I guess the last question is, what would you name your origin story for Mr. Vaughn, Mrs. Vaughn, Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah, something like that. What do you reckon? Let's gather together to be wrong. I don't know. What would you call it?
The Misadventures of Super Wrong? I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. The Misadventures of Mr. Wrong. Miss Wrong. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you again for joining the podcast.
That's my pleasure, Ezekiel. It's been a lot of fun. That superhero question, I love that. And I hope I didn't talk too much or rant off in too many directions. So it was great. It was lovely. Thank you very much.
Welcome. And you always say that where everybody can find you, so we did that. And we can sign off.
Okay, great.
That brings another episode of the Let's Get Our Podcast to a close. Again, I'd like to thank Wendy Nash for being a guest on the podcast. For next week, I have Bill and Karen Drestel to speak about Chubby Beagle Productions. Hope you enjoy that day, and I hope to see you there.